some people don't like it, but I'm just going to keep it real. I don't know what Bernie Sanders is doing. I still love Bernie. I went on Jimmy's show. He was nice enough to have me on to talk about the Flint story. I agreed with him on a lot of things. I don't agree that Bernie is a sellout or a coward or any of these things, and I communicated that. Bernie Sanders, whatever, decided to drop out of the race, didn't want to put people at jeopardy by, having more primaries and things like that. Did tell his voters, keep voting for him in states that will hold primaries to get the delegate count up. Did a live stream with Joe Biden that kind of, to me, looked like a hostage video. It looked very uncomfortable for Bernie. It was very uncomfortable just watching it because it's essentially like trying to pretend that you're all on the same team and believe in the same things when you're sitting there with a puppet for the banks, the oil companies, obviously, the health insurance industry. They're all corrupt. And Joe Biden has not moved an inch. An inch. I don't want to hear that he's willing to lower the age. Yes, they are trying to remove Bernie from the ballot here in New York and cancel the primary, which is absurd. Thanks for reminding me of that. Lowering the age of Medicare to 60 is not a concession. It's an insult. Okay, so you're going to lower the age to 60, which, by the way, helps your private health insurance donors, helps the private health insurance industry because they don't want people 60 to 64 on their payrolls because those are, by the data, some of the most ill, in need of services patients. So they're happy to get those on the public rolls. That's exactly what a public option would do. They would put the sickest people on the public rolls and keep the relatively healthy, not needing a lot of services people on the private rolls. So I'm supposed to dance naked jumping jacks to Joe Biden's lowering the age to 60. He says we're going to cancel student debt for people making lower than $125,000 that went to public schools. I don't have any reason to think Joe Biden's going to fight for that. I just don't. I don't. There's nothing in his record. And based on what we're starting to hear about who he's taking economic advice from, all of this looks like smoke and mirrors. Because you are not what you say you are what your record is, and you are who you surround yourself with. And new reports are that Joe Biden is now taking economic advice from Larry Summers. Do you know who Larry Summers is? Former Treasury Secretary to Bill Clinton, former bigwig at big banks, did more damage to this economy. I think, who called him? Was it Crystal or Sagar, like the father of neoliberalism? Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers is now advising Biden's campaign on economic policy, including its plan to revive the U.S. economy after the coronavirus pandemic, according to 5 people. And by the way, Biden's campaign leaked this. This isn't some grand investigative piece. They're leaking what they want people to know. And he's leaking it because he wants the Wall Street banks to know, hey, nothing's going to fundamentally change here, as he already told Wall Street donors. The Obama and Clinton administration veteran will likely roll progressives who view his past work on the 2009 recovery as too favorable to big banks. Hey, let's go a little further than the 2009 recovery. Let's go to his love for things like NAFTA. Here's Larry Summers on NAFTA, which decimated so much of America, including many of you that are watching. Larry Summers, trade is very complicated. NAFTA has proved to be more important than people supposed at the time, given events in Mexico. I believe Mexico would be a very different country, one much less congenial to American interests without NAFTA. Post-NAFTA, the Uruguay round was completed, the largest tax cut in the history of planet Earth. Oh, that tax cut really helped the workers who lost their jobs because of NAFTA and had their jobs and their plants closed down and their storefronts boarded up. Thank you for that tax cut, Larry. The WTO became complete when China became a member, talking about permanent trade relations with China, which, by the way, is why we don't make anything in America anymore. Why we are so dramatically in need of masks and equipment and all this stuff, PPE, masks, ventilators from China. because of permanent trade relations with China, because of NAFTA that Lawrence Summers cheerlead along. The WTO became complete when China became a member. For the first time, special selected trade benefits were given to a number of the most promising African reforming countries. So it was a period that saw progress, and it was a period that saw resistance, some regress. Oh, just some regress, like the total deindustrialization of the pretty much a 7 to 8 state region of America. The administration held the line against a number of protectionist suggestions that seem to have gained greater currency recently. This is who? The champion, the heroes of NAFTA is who Joe Biden is taking economic advice. And by the way, economic advice, he's taking his P's and Q's. This is not advice. His economic policy, if this is who he's taking advice from, why should we think that he's not going to appoint Larry Summers or Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan or any one of these Wall Street heroes as his Treasury Secretary, as his economic advisors, as his labor secretary? Why should we think anything fundamentally will change from the Trump administration economically if Biden is president? Will he raise taxes 0.5% on wealthy people and make that look like some grand victory for the worker bees of America? He wants to surround himself with Larry Summers. Here's some more about Larry Summers. Like almost every elite Democrat, Larry Summers is so enamored, this is from The Intercept, so enamored of corporate globalization that he'll say just about anything in its defense, even unfairly trash his own political party. Summers, who was Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton and head of Obama's National Economy Council, recently declaimed that one of our major parties, i.e. the Democrats, is opposed to essentially all trade agreements. That's maddeningly false in two ways. First, the president strongly supports the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He's a Democrat. The Senate Finance Committee just approved its fast-track bill, with a majority of Democratic senators voting for it. Second, while the base of the Democratic Party does strongly oppose the TPP and opposed NAFTA in the early 1990s, it's completely untrue that it opposes any trade agreements. One of the main slogans of the opposition to the version of NAFTA that was enacted in 1994 was "Not this NAFTA." Regarding the TPP, Dean Baker, co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research, says, quote, "If we had a trade deal that focused on improving the living standards of the typical worker, it would get plenty of support from Democrats." So Lawrence Summers is a cheerleader for deindustrialization. Lawrence Summers is a cheerleader for taking economic machetes to cities and communities and towns that used to be the economic lifeblood of America. Lawrence Summers, you think he's ever spent that much time in deindustrialized cities? In Milwaukee, Cleveland, Ohio, Flint, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Scranton, list goes on. You think he spent that much time there? You think he gives a damn? No. He's invited to the cocktail parties. He's invited to the Biden's fundraisers, both virtual and when everybody could safely get together. These people creating economic policy and that Joe Biden is apparently surrounding himself with, they don't give a damn. They look at things as a balance sheet. They don't care. And when he says there was some small regress, some small downfalls of things like NAFTA and those things, and yet Bernie Sanders is playing footsie with Joe Biden. And I know some people get triggered when you criticize Bernie, and I'm certainly not going Jimmy Dore's route. I think he's lost his mind, to be honest with you. I mean, I went on his show and I agree with him on a lot of things. I think Bernie shouldn't have voted for this bailout. I think Bernie should have tried to organize against it. Maybe he is tired after 2 presidential runs. You know, he's a human being. We can't, as progressives, we shouldn't just sit here and bow down to everybody. So I'll criticize Bernie when I have to criticize Bernie. I still like him. I still think there would be no awoke progressive movement right now without Bernie Sanders. There was no progressive movement in 2015 when he first ran. It was dormant, basically. So I'm not abandoning Bernie Sanders. I still like him, but even our heroes need to be pressured. And I don't particularly know if you wanted to endorse Biden because you think Trump is a unique threat, and even having someone like Biden is better than Trump. Okay. But there's a way of doing it. There's a strategic way of doing it. There is an effective way of doing it. There's a way of using leverage. There's a way of using your movement as a threat where they actually have to give up real things. Not just because you're getting pressured from all the media outlets and Nancy and Chuck and all these people. Bernie, you're putting people at risk by going on. Bernie Sanders could have simply said, listen, I'm going to support Biden and do everything I can, but, Joe's got to convince. Joe's got to convince millions of young people around this country. Joe's got to convince millions of Latinos around this country. Joe's going to have to do the work, and it won't come with words. It will come with actions. I can't excite young people and Latinos and working people for Joe Biden. He has to do that. And frankly, he's excited a lot of voters over the age of 50. That's how he beat me. But he's done a pretty terrible job based on what he's offering of making the case to young people, of making the case to Latinos. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not I'm not making demands. My movement is not just me, it's millions of people, and I'm not gonna make demands for them. And frankly, if Joe Biden doesn't offer progressives something real, he could very well lose, and he will lose, most likely. Bernie could have done all that. When he has Joe Biden on a live stream, could have very easily said, Joe, we have some disagreements here. I think that this current coronavirus epidemic, the pandemic and the epidemic might be specifically about a deadly virus going around, but the healthcare pandemic was already going on for the last 20, 30 years. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.